And today is World Suicide Prevention Day, a time to show support for suicide prevention efforts and to remember the lives of those who have died by suicide. The theme this year is changing the narrative on suicide. Joining us this morning to discuss this is Shauna Dewar, a community engagement lead at Nova Scotia Health's Mental Health and Addictions Program. Good morning, Shauna.
Good morning.
So let's talk about how we are changing the narrative on suicide.
Right. So for a long time, and still right now, we are often not comfortable talking about suicide. It feels uncomfortable. It can be scary talking about it. And there's so much stigma around it, which causes folks that are thinking about suicide to hold it in, not share, and doesn't allow us to know how we can help best. So changing that narrative is really about meeting those conversations with compassion, helping those that in the way that they want to be helped, and understanding that through just open conversation without judgment.
Well, I'm glad you're here today to have this conversation. Let's talk about the Roots of Hope program. What is that?
So Roots of Hope is an initiative through the Mental Health Commission of Canada. There's Roots of Hope communities and work happening throughout the country. And in Nova Scotia Health coordinates the Roots of Hope work. We work with community organizations to build capacity in community to support those that are thinking about suicide and or grieving from suicide.
Okay. I think that it's really important that this idea of changing the narrative, having these conversations, how does talking about it, say a conversation like this, bringing it into the public, and then actually speaking to someone who is considering suicide. For example, I was walking down the street and someone had taken an initiative, knowing this day was coming, to write on the sidewalk things like, "You are not a burden." That really hit home because I think with people, they're thinking they're saving their loved ones by not talking about these dark thoughts they're having.
Absolutely. And everyone goes through life challenges. No one escapes living in this world without some sort of hardships and challenges with it. And sometimes we're in places where it can be really difficult to see that turning point, to go into another corner, to see that life is going to get better. We're just living in a moment where it's really hard and challenging. And that challenge can be felt by everybody that's around that person too. So, you know, that idea of being a burden is sometimes we do need help getting through life. Yes. Sometimes we need help changing our trajectory, right? And that burden can feel heavy for folks, right? And adding on that layer of thinking about suicide.
So let's say you're a loved one or a friend and someone comes to you and confides in you that they're thinking about suicide. How can you respond appropriately to that conversation?
Right. Well, and this is just such an important question because we often escalate it past what that person wants, right? That person wants to feel validated perhaps in what's going on for them, and help people understand how hard it's been, right? Because as I said, people go through hard stuff all the time and we get through it, right? And sometimes it just gets to be too much. So by being able to speak about it and just being able to validate like what you are going through is tough. And it is understandable that you're thinking about suicide. It's understandable that you've lost hope. I can relate to that. It's not that we want you to feel that way, but it's understandable. It's a very human experience to think about.
Let's say you're watching right now and you're in that situation where tomorrow just seems too dark. What can you do? Who can you talk to? They say you don't have anyone to talk to in your life.
Right, yeah. So, and that's a case for many people, right? So some of us are fortunate to have that support and that circle around us that we can go to. For those that are struggling to find someone to talk to, you know, there is like numbers like 988 and the Kids Help Phone. Those folks are there to listen and just hear what's going on with you. Distracting yourself when those thoughts are activated. Being around others. Even though you want to feel like isolate yourself, right? Connect with others. And so sometimes that's just even like going to a mall, right? And being with people, right?
We have about a minute left, Shauna. I know there's some myths surrounding suicide you wanted to get out today. Maybe share one or two with our viewers now.
I think one that really causes people to pause is around associating suicide with mental illness. And those that have mental illness do think about suicide or can think about suicide, but not everybody who thinks about suicide is mentally ill. So when we think about mental illness and think about as a role of a helper, that can sometimes limit us to think, well, I'm not a therapist, I'm not a clinician, I don't have any skills to help with this. But to take us out of that space and understand that it's just challenges in life and losing hope.
Well, thank you so much for offering that perspective today, Shauna.
Great, thank you.
All right, if you or someone you know is thinking about suicide, call or text 988. That is Canada's Suicide Crisis Helpline. Help is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It is worth the call. You'll be happy you made that call. CTV Morning Live is going to take a break. We'll be right back after this.